so excited to do another update from my reading journal that is just, like I say every month, it is bursting. But I've got 8 months in it, and now I'm going to put September in it. But I do need to add 2 inserts to the year of books and also some bookshelves. So this video is going to be a little bit longer, so I hope you have your favorite drink or you're going to scrapbook while you watch this video. But I am going to need to add these pieces so that way I can keep adding the books that I've read this year and also write down the books on my shelf. Let me just show you real quick. So over here, I need to maybe add another shelf, and then I think I'm going to put the flip down because there's really no other way to do it. If I put it over here, it would cover some books. So I figured I'll just do a flip down. And then same thing over here, I'll do a flip down. That way everything can stay in the same order. I have this thing with my books staying in the order that I read them, because I could put books here, but then it wouldn't be necessarily in order. So I'm just gonna add a flip to that. And then I will go ahead and start on September. Go ahead and use the CutShoppe printable kit for September. She was making those kits this year and then stopped at September, but there is 9 printable kits and they're all amazing. And so I'll use September to put together my September in my journal. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I am excited to put together another month of my reading. All right, let's go. Okay, I hope you guys are ready to have some fun watching me set up my reading journal, and I'm just so excited to update this journal. Like I've said every month, it is my favorite project. I just love making my reading journal and finding ways to document my books. And I'm already thinking of how I can change things and what's working and what's not working for this year. So I'm excited to continue documenting books. All right, so I am adding my insert to add some more book covers. I actually thought I was going to need it this month, but I don't. I actually will need it for October, but that's fine. It's there and I have it ready to go, which is awesome. So it's just one of the papers that I bought off of Amazon that's like half binder size, I believe. So 8.5 by 5.5 inches. And I just kind of eyeballed it, cut off 2 of the rows so that way it wasn't touching where the coils are, and then just used about half of it and then folded it, adhered it, and there you go. So I started off the month with a really popular book called The Thursday Murder Club, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if I didn't have enough time to read or what it was, but that book was not as like awesome as so many people said it would be. So that was kind of a bummer. I then read a romance that was called Forget Me Not, and then The Wishing Game, which was, I felt it was a fantastic book. I loved it. I felt like it was a great, homage to people that love books. So it was really great. And I read a lot of thrillers this month and a lot of like weird-ish books. So I also read Local Woman Missing. I listened to that one. I read Strange Sally Diamond and They Never Learn, which was recommended to me. But there was quite a few books this month where I was like, huh. And I actually think my average rating wound up being the lowest it's been all year. So that was interesting to kind of note. I did decide to add a large die cut on the front cover because I felt like it was blank, and I may go back and stamp some stamps or sentiments on top of there. I haven't decided. I don't want it to look too cluttered, but I wanted something there. So I started off with like a stack of die cuts, as you can see. These are the ones that I used from the Etsy shop that I found when I was searching reading printables or reading stickers. I finally decided on Book Lovers Club Lifetime Member, and I put it right in the middle so that way if I do decide to stamp later on, I have that option. And same thing with the insert that I have. I can go ahead and stamp on that if I want to. So my favorite book for the month was, of course, the Colleen Hoover book called It Starts With Us, which is the book that I just kept meaning to read and just kept forgetting. I think I was saving it because it's her latest book and she's my favorite, so I just kept saving it. I finally decided, stop doing that. I re-listened to the book. Well, actually, I read the book first. It Ends With Us. I read that years ago when it first came out, and then I re-listened to it before I read this book. And I also almost adhered the book and the month to the wrong spot, but I fixed that. So I got it in the right spot now where September belongs. Now I'm going to add an insert for 2, and I said in my intro that I really didn't want to have the insert to be on the right hand side because it would mess up the order of the books, but I decided I didn't want to have another flip down, and I wanted to have the most room that I could possibly have, so I'm going to do an insert that is on the right hand side, and it's going to mess up the order of my books completely and totally, and I'm just going to have to be okay with that. So I'm actually writing down the books that could potentially get covered up when I add this insert. So I wanted to make sure that I remembered what those books were so I can add them once I get done stamping all the new shelves. And I also have the top of this insert, I did not stamp with any shelves because I don't know if I'm going to need it. Who knows? This month I read 12, so that was a pretty good month. So I'll just play it by ear, and if I need more shelves, I need more shelves. This is another reason that I think I will go to the disc system, because that way I can put nothing on the back of my shelf pages, and then later on, if I need to add more, I can add more, and it's not going to be a situation where I have to add an insert. So if that makes sense, like I said, I'm already thinking of this stuff. Are you guys already thinking of your 2023 plans? I'd love to know in the comment section. So I went to find my gray marker that I used to make these shelves, and I know it's a Tombow marker, but I could not find it anywhere. So I found something close to it, and I said, okay, yeah, that will work. And then I forgot to color in the rest of the shelves. So I only have a small chunk of the shelves colored, but maybe that Tombow marker will show up, and then I can fix it, and they will look the same. I also needed to add in like a planter box that I have that's similar to the shelves, or is the same as the shelves. So I'm going to do that as I go. I grab the same stamp set that I had used in the beginning, which was the Studio Calico stamp set. I think it's called Read More or something like that. So I grabbed that, and that's what I'm going to stamp for my books. I stamp a vertical set of books and then horizontal. Then I'll add a planter and then another vertical stack of books. And I'll also add in some die cuts in a little bit, just so that way there is complete consistency between all the shelves that I have inserted. And I just counted the box for the planter. I keep saying planter, but you know I mean like plant, a plant pot. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So anyways, I draw that and I color it in, and then I'm going to stamp some flowers later on. And then, of course, add the last set of books. And now I'll move on to the second row where I do 2 vertical and then 1 horizontal. Almost did a horizontal, but then I looked and I saw that I had ended with a vertical. So I wanted to keep it the same as a vertical. And then on the bottom, I'm going to do vertical and then a horizontal, and that will finish the shelves. And so hopefully that will be enough. If it's not, that's okay. Like I said, I have the front side of this insert, and I can just add some more books because, wow, it's been a crazy year of reading and an amazing year of reading, especially rediscovering audiobooks. That has been an absolute game changer. I get a lot more done now with audiobooks, and I'm able to ignore my children if I need to. You guys are making too much noise. I'm just going to, check out. So I'm looking through that die cut box again to to figure out what die cuts I want to use. I pick out a book, and then I pick out a little sign that says I love books, and then another book, and then an open book. I thought I was going to do an audiobook with like the headphones, but then I don't know. I felt like it wasn't a bright enough pink, so I decided to just go with that open-faced book, and I'll just cut off a piece of it, and then I'll just call that good enough. I really wanted to add in another plant, so I'm going to add that to the top shelf in a little bit, and I'm just going to pretend that it all works together. I could actually go back and add that plant to the bottom shelf, because afterwards I noticed that only the top shelves have die cuts of the plants. I don't know. Sometimes we notice weird things about our projects and we're like, that's not right, that's not balanced. But in all actuality, it's probably totally fine, and we can just keep moving forward, right? So I have all of the books stamped and also all of the die cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere those down, and then I can fill in the book titles for this month. And I also got to figure out which stamp ink I used for the flowers, because I think I used an orange, but I wasn't sure. I did find the correct marker though. And right now I am starting the book called The Witch of Wild Things. I believe that's what it's called. And I just finished The Brothers Hawthorne, I believe. Oh my gosh, you guys, that book is almost 500 pages, and I had no time to read this week, so it just felt like it trudged on and on. So I'm kind of feel like I'm sticking with books right now, like they're not going quickly. And also I'm listening to a kid's book, and then before that I was listening to The Kiss Curse, and that book too. It's like, I don't know, I was having such a hard time following along with the storyline and figuring out what in the world is going on. So that's why I said I feel a little stuck with my books right now. So hopefully now that I'm past The Kiss Curse and I'm past the Hawthorns, everything will pick up great. That's what I'm thinking. All right, so I would love to know in the comment section what you guys are reading right now. I would absolutely love to know. Okay, so I took a break and came back to this project, and I got out the stamp set that I need to stamp the flowers. I stamp it in orange ink. It's a little off, but it's going to have to work. Color in the flowers just like I did before, and then I can get started on writing the titles, including the ones that I put on the Post-it note. So, and like I said, everything is going to be out of order, and it really is just like, I don't know, makes me kind of like, I don't know. What's the word? Makes me kind of twitchy to have everything out of order, but it's just going to have to be that way. There's no other way around it. So I write out Happy Place, The Echo of Old Books, and then I start on September's books. And I have the Thursday Murder Club and also Forget Me Not. And then I will continue with the rest of those books. And the second shelf is, of course, going to have Icebreaker and Ruby Red Fort and The Housemaid from last month. And then down on the third shelf, I'm going to add 2 more books from September. That way I start to fill up that shelf. There was no rhyme or reason with how I'm putting these books. I'm literally just writing them wherever I can fill in spots, and that's just gonna have to be good enough, and I'll just have to deal with it that way. I also had to keep flipping back to my year of books because I was having such a hard time remembering, like, what did I read next? And like, I don't know, maybe because everybody was distracting me while I was making this mammoth project. But eventually I get them all written down, and then I can move on to the Goodreads challenge, which is another thing that I'm totally rethinking for next year. Like, how could I make this work so that way it doesn't look like a wonky game board, and also so that way I can include more books, because I don't know if this Goodreads challenge is going to make it to the end of the year, and I'm not adding an insert. I've decided I'm not going to add an insert. I'm not going to try to figure it out. It'll just have to be good enough. Okay, so I'm done with the shelves, and it looks awesome. The insert works perfect, and this is the Goodreads, and like I said, I'm not going to add an insert. I'm just not. And for September, I will color in 2 boxes, and then 3 little ones on the last row, and 1 to finish off where August is, because it's 12 books. And I went with more of a brown color because it's going into fall. or what should be fall. California refuses to go into fall, but you know, that's just California. So I've got 12, and then after that, I will move on to the goals for 2023, which is another thing that I am rethinking because I want to have more room for the challenges or the goals for myself, and I want to be able to more room, and I want to kind of think about how I'm gonna be able to do this right, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because I feel like I didn't research enough the 10 different series that I could read, and I also didn't take time to research Goodread winners, or I just didn't pay attention to them on Goodreads. But I do have the 100 books done, and I have almost half of the middle grade books. And I did add Jake Undone to J and Strange Sally Diamond to the alphabet. So now all I need is E, Q, and X. And I did read a romance called X's and O's, so I could always count that for X. So really it's only E and Q, and that's really awesome. This month I added a ton of books to the thriller section. Like I said, it was a thriller-filled month, thriller and romance. And I also added a few to the adult category up at the top. So I finished my August Around the World book right at the beginning of September. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And it is the Forget Me Not. It was Pacific Northwest is where this section was, and this book took place in California, and it was okay. It was just okay. It was a 4-star book, pretty good, and that's about all I can say about the book. It's not like riveting or anything, so just okay. And the next step is my romance challenge, and I almost finished this romance challenge. Almost. I had one left to do, and I was so close to finishing it. Which is a bummer. So I'm hoping that I can finish the 4th one and fully complete it. So I read Jake Undone, which is a title that starts with a J. And then I read It Starts With Us, which was the category book you keep meaning to read. And then Forget Me Not is tattoos on the cover. And again, I just adhere these covers to a piece of paper, fold it over, and that way it flips up and you can still see the category for the challenge. And I can also add my rating with a really tiny heart stamp. And that's another thing I may redo next year. Like if it's a 3.25, I will only stamp 3 hearts and then write 0.25 or just write 3.25. I don't know. I got to think about it. I feel like it's not clear enough when I'm stamping. You know, obviously it's not clear enough because I can't do a quarter of a heart. I try sometimes, but it doesn't always work. So after this, I'm going to flip to September, and because so many of my book covers had cool blue colors to them, I decided to go with blues and browns and a touch of orange. Not necessarily what I would have picked for September, because I'd love to go full on fall, but sometimes you have to just go with what the book covers are telling you to go with, and that was blues. Blues and browns, and like I said, a touch of orange. So I am doing my calendar, and then I will add in all the decorative pieces, and you will notice that most of my audiobooks and most of my regular books took about a week to read because it just was a busy month, and it's the same in October, but that's okay. It's just a season of life. Maybe in November I'll get to read more because we have less school and less activities for the kids. There's been a lot of activities for kids. Somehow our kids wound up in double activities for both kids, and that's never happened before. We've always tried to do just one per kid, but there's been a little bit of overlap. But teamwork, and we're getting the kids where they need to go. Anyways, I've got the calendar all drawn, and now I can write out the dates and then go ahead and decorate. I think that was the next step that I wanted to do, is decorate. But first, I'm going to fill in the circles with a brown. I just forgot what day September started on, and it started on a Friday. So I just go from there and fill in the little circles with a brown dot, and then I'll grab my pen and draw in the date 1 through 30. I'm also going to grab the Ali Edwards alpha stamp that I'm using. If you remember, I kind of rotate between how I put my months on my page. So I think I always use an Ali Edwards stamp, but I usually do the alpha, or I do like June memories, something like that. That way it's just a little bit different for each month. And I also am going to grab some washi tape that coordinates as well, because I like doing that at the bottom. And then I have a ton of different die cuts from the CutShoppe September printable kit. I have some blues and browns and oranges, the different colored leaves, and I'm excited to use those because I love leaves. And September, October, November, and December are always so fun to decorate, at least for me. I stamped "I'd rather be reading" in the bottom left corner, and also a 12 for the number of books. And speaking of things that I want to change for next year, I will probably figure out a way to make the numbers bigger, either with a stamp set or just die cutting the number. That way it's a little more prominent. I love having a little extra space up at the top of the calendar. That way I can put a little bit of a cluster up there. I took a few of the digital stamps from this printable kit and also her read kit, and I made those into die cuts. First, I colored them with the color scheme that I had, and then I was able to add a white stroke in Photoshop Elements, and then I cut them out on the Cameo. And those are Loving This and Currently Reading. And below the September and Currently Reading, I will put a piece of washi tape just to kind of anchor those two pieces together, the title and also the die cut. And then I just have a scattering of leaves in various colors. Same thing on the right hand side, except I did the giant blue leaf facing downwards. Also found in my little pile of die cuts on the left hand side, that tray, I found a blue acorn that will work perfect, and then two small brown die cuts with leaves on them. So I decided to go ahead and use both of those. Okay, I started off the month finishing up the Thursday Murder Club book, and I'm hoping the second one is better because I love the cast of characters, but something about it was just kind of slow for me. I definitely do want to try another one. I definitely do. Let me know if you've read this series of the older seniors that get into all kinds of mischief. They are very hilarious. The following week, I spent the week reading Hello Beautiful, which was very interesting, and then listening to a thriller called Drowning Woman. So that one was, wow, that one was something. And then I had The Wishing Game and Local Woman Missing that I listened to. And that's what I've noticed too with audiobooks, is that I prefer listening to either romances or thrillers or nonfiction. Those are kind of the genres that I really love to listen to. And sometimes kid books too, but lately it's hit or miss with kid books, so I don't know. I also started to notice on this calendar, as I'm putting the different dates for everything, that I actually started and finished a ton of books on the weekend. So I think that that is going to be one of my categories for the stat page. Towards the end of the month, I finished up my nonfiction book called Radium Girls. I don't know if you've ever read it or heard about that, but in the 1920s, there was a clock factory where they used radium, and they had no idea the effects of the radium, and the women's bones were literally falling apart and disintegrating because they would dip their paintbrush in the radium, then into their mouth, and then paint the numbers on the pocket watch or whatever it was, usually pocket watches, and it just went from there, these poor girls. And to this day, the women that are buried, their bones are still glowing because of the radium and the afterlife of the radium, which is just crazy to imagine. So reading the Radium Girls was very enlightening, and I loved learning about this piece of history. And I'm excited to watch the movie and, just research a little bit more, because I found it very interesting that this happened. It took place before like all the workplace injury type of things were set in place. So I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Radium Girls? Let me know if you have. Okay, moving on to the stats page, I put the washi up at the top along with kind of the green color that I have. It's kind of a blue, kind of a green sage, I don't know. But either way, I put the washi up there and decided, you know what, it's just going to work. And then, of course, stamped all the stats, and I drew out everything else with a pencil just to make things slightly faster, which it does, because I don't know why, but I'm always flipping back and forth to make sure that I counted the right number of lines between each thing. So for me, it works better to start off with a pencil. So I'm going to have a big cluster by all with a brown leaf, and I think I'm going to do a digital stamp. I had Happy Fall, and you can see that in the top part of the screen, but I decided to switch it, and I'll switch it later on. I am starting with adhering down the book covers, and I do a book cover and then stamp the my rating, then add the book cover and then the rating, and so on. Because the rating, I've noticed, is a little wider than the book covers that I do. But if I read like 12 books a month, I can fit 4 across at the biggest size that I do the books, which is 1 inch wide and 1.5 inch tall. And if I read more than like 10, I will shrink the size of the books. That way I don't have to do an insert. But sometimes it is fun to do an insert, and I have done one for March and also one for June. And maybe I'll do one for October, just because I'm going to have so much fun decorating my spread. I'm going to want lots of room to decorate and add all the fun bits for October. Are you guys reading any spooky books for October? I feel like I have a ton in my shelf where all my library books are, but I haven't gotten to a lot of them. And I think I mentioned that earlier, but I usually do spooky books for October and November, and that makes me so happy. So I will just keep reading spooky books, like I have Nettle and Bone, and I mentioned The Witch and the Wild Things. I also have Big Bad Me, which is a teen book. I have a ton of books. It's bananas how many books I have. And then if I don't get to them, I just add it to a running list that I have on my phone of spooky books. So if I don't get to it this year, I can always add it to my list, and I'll get to it next year maybe. So I switched out the die cut. You can see up by all the stats, it says read all the books. That's a digital stamp that I colored white and then laid it on top of a blue circle that matched the color of the leaves. I also put a small cluster over on the right-hand side. I don't normally do that, but I thought, you know what, that would be kind of fun. So I did Happy Fall and a blue leaf. And then I did some leaves down at the bottom on the right-hand side, and I'm just going to trim off the pieces that hang over just a little bit. I decided to trace all of my lines in pen now instead of individually one at a time, and I will also trace my circle for the different sections. And I know that this is probably a silly thing, but I've talked about it before. Picking out colors each month is so tricky for me, especially when I don't feel like I have the color. Like I didn't really have a blue that matched perfectly with the blue in these die cut leaves, and I didn't have an orange that matched perfect. So I just made it work the best that I could, and I think I got close enough. So that's what counts. But that is definitely a tricky part for me, is finding markers that can coordinate. So that is something I'm thinking about. I do want to keep the chart for next year. I love the pie chart, but I don't know how I'm going to make this work with the markers. So I read, believe it or not, 4,444 pages. And then audio pages were 2,973. At least I think that's what I understood from the Storygraph stats. So for genres, I have thriller, history, science, literary, LGBTQIA+, and then mystery and crime. So a big range of genres, but there's still a lot of thriller and crime and mystery. For my special categories, I went with start and finish on a weekend, just so, and for a challenge. So start and finish on a weekend was actually 6 books. 6 books, which is half my books I either started or finished on a weekend. Just so was 5, and then for a challenge was 5. For paper books, I had 6, but it might have been 7 because I cannot remember how I read They Never Learn. I believe that was a Kindle, so I may have to go back and fix it. But for now, I just put down 6 paper books, 1 Kindle, and 4 audio. So it might need to be 2 Kindle. I stamped an extra 2 and then just set it aside. Same thing with the My Ratings. The top row of My Ratings is really crooked, and I stamped a few extra and then decided, you know what, I'm just going to leave it crooked and it's fine the way it is. I flipped back to the calendar to make sure that I counted right for the number of weekend books, and then also I'm going to make sure and count the so-so books. Like I said, a lot of these books were just kind of like not a hit, but not a miss. They were just meh, so-so. And I would say those books are the Thursday Murder Club, Hello Beautiful, Jake Undone, They Never Learn, and Strange Sally Diamond. Strange Sally Diamond was a really good book, but I felt like it was very disturbing, I guess, and there was a lot of heavy topics in it, so it's not necessarily like fun to read. So I guess those are the books, and I don't know if Strange Sally Diamond fits in that category, but I put it in that category. So now I'm drawing the different sections for my pie chart. I always go with 6. So I go with the 5 main categories that my books fall into, and then the 6th one is always just other, because I'm not going to make a million pieces for the pie chart. So the big one this month was emotional. Remember, every month it is emotional, and I think last month for August, it was the first time that it was not emotional, which was really interesting. Second category, which I wasn't too surprised, but the second category was dark. So yes, I read a lot of books that were dark, apparently, which makes sense to me. And then the third category that's going to wind up being like a little blue slice is tense. And then the next one, which I did kind of another tan color. I haven't colored it in quite yet, but it's kind of a different shade of brown, and that is going to be mysterious. Then interestingly, I mean, my whole stats this month were really interesting. The 5th little slice is the neutral tan that I love to use, and that is reflective. So that was kind of interesting to have that little piece in there. And then other was the other slices. So very interesting stats this month, and definitely an interesting mix of books. My average rating was 3.94. Again, I think that was the lowest it's been probably all year. So I don't know, I'll have to go back and look, and then I'll tell you in October. I actually am going to do another walkthrough for July, August, and September, which is the 3rd quarter. So that walkthrough video should be next week. And that should be so much fun to talk to you about the last 3 months of reading. So I filled in all my ratings, and now I'm going to add that little row of leaves down at the bottom, and then just trim off the pieces that I don't need. And that will wrap up my reading journal spread and updating my reading journal for September. And I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing these pages come together and seeing me update my reading journal. I so appreciate you guys reading, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful week. I would love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you are new to my channel. Have a wonderful week. Bye.